Hi, fourth graders. This week we are going to start the book Bridge to Terabithia by Katherine Patterson. Each day we will read one chapter together. This will be a 3-week unit. This week will be chapters 1 through 5, next week 6 through 10, and then our last week 11 through 13. And then we will do an opinion writing, whether you like the book or not, and then we will summarize it also. I would like to start off by just reading you the blurb and giving you a little bit more information. This is a realistic fiction book, and the blurb says, a secret world of their own. Jess Aaron's greatest ambition is to be the fastest runner in the 5th grade. He's been practicing all summer and can't wait to see his classmates' faces when he beats them all. But on the first day of school, a new girl boldly crosses over to the boys' side of the playground and outruns everyone. That's not a very promising beginning for a friendship, but Jess and Leslie Burke become inseparable. Leslie has an imagination. Together, she and Jess create Terabithia, a magical kingdom in the woods where the two of them reign as king and queen, and their imagination set the only limits. Then one morning, a terrible tragedy occurs. Only when Jess is able to come to grips with his tragedy does he finally understand the strength and courage Leslie has given him. So today, fourth grade, we're going to go ahead and start reading chapter 1. You can follow along either in a book, or if you have Epic open, you may follow along with me. So chapter 1, Jesse Oliver Aarons Jr. Baroom, 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 barippity, 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 barippity. Good. His dad had the pickup going. He could get up now. Just lit out of bed and into his overalls. He didn't worry about a shirt because once he began running, he would be hot as popping grease even if the morning air was chill. Or shoes because the bottoms of his feet were by now as tough as worn out sneakers. Where are you going, Jess? Maybelle lifted herself up sleepily from the double bed where she and Joyce Aaron slept. Shh, he warned. The walls were thin. Mama would be mad as flies in a fruit jar if they woke her up as this time of day. He patted Maybelle's hair and yanked the twisted sheet up to her small chin. Just over the cow field, he whispered. Maybelle smiled and snuggled down under the sheet. Gonna run? Maybe. Of course he was going to run. He had gotten up early every day all summer to run. He figured if he had worked at it, and Lord, had he worked, he could be the fastest runner in the 5th grade when school opened up. He had to be the fastest, no one of the fastest or next to the fastest, but the fastest, the very best. He tiptoed out of the house. The place was so rattly that it screeched whenever you put your foot down. But Jess had found that if you tiptoed, it gave only a low moan, and he could usually get outdoors without waking Mama or Ellie or Brenda or Joyce Ann. Maybelle was another matter. She was going on 7, and she worshipped him, which was okay sometimes. When you were the only boy smashed between 4 sisters and the older 2 had despised you ever since you stopped letting them dress you up and wheel you around in their rusty old doll carriage, and the littlest one cried if you looked at her cross-eyed. It was nice to have somebody who worshipped you, even if it got unhandy sometimes. He began to trot across the yard. His breath was coming out in the little puffs, cold for August, but it was early yet. By noontime, when his mom would have him out working, it would be hot enough. Miss Bessie stared at him sleepily as he climbed across the scrap heap over the fence and into the cow field. Moo, she said, looking for all the world like another Maybelle with her big brown droopy eyes. Bang, he said, and he took off flying around the cow field. Miss Bessie strolled toward the center, still following him with his droopy eyes, chewing slowly. She didn't look very smart, even for a cow, but she was plenty bright enough to get out of Jess's way. His straw-colored hair flapped hard against his forehead, and his arms and legs flew out every which way. He had never learned to run properly, but he was long-legged for a 10-year-old, and no one had more grit than he. Lark Creek Elementary was short on everything, especially athletic equipment, so all the balls went to the upper grades at recess time after lunch. Even if a 5th grader started out the period with a ball, it was sure to be in the hands of a 6th or 7th grader before the hour was half over. The older boys always took the dry center of the upper field for their ball games, while the girls claimed the small top section for hopscotch and jump rope and hanging around. talking. So the lower grade boys had started this morning thing. They would all line up on the far side of the lower field where it was either muddy or deep, crusty ruts. Earl Watson, who was not good at running but had a big mouth, would yell, "Bang!" And they'd race to a line they towed across at the other end. One time last year, Jess had won, not just the first heat, but the whole shebang. Only once, but it put into his mouth a taste for winning. Ever since he'd been in first grade, he'd been that crazy little kid that draws all the time. But one day, April the 22nd, a drizzly Monday it had been, he had ran ahead of them all red mud sloshing up through the holes in the bottoms of his sneakers. For the rest of the day, and until after lunch on the next, he had been the fastest kid in the third, fourth, and fifth grades. And he only, a fourth grader, on Tuesday, Wayne Pettis had won again, as usual. But this year, Wayne Pettis would be in the sixth grade. He'd play football until Christmas and baseball until June with the rest of the big guys. Anybody had a chance to be the fastest runner. And by Miss Bessie this year, it was going to be Jesse Oliver Aarons Jr. Jesse pumped his arms harder and bent his head for the distant fence. He could hear the third grade boys screaming him on. They would follow him around like a country music star, and Maybelle would pop her buttons. Her brother was the fastest, the best. That ought to give the rest of the first grade something to chew their cuds on. Even his dad would be proud. Just rounded the corner. He couldn't keep quite so fast, but he continued running for a while. It would build him up. Maybelle would tell Daddy so it wouldn't look as though he, Jess, was a bragger. Maybe Dad would be so proud he'd forgot all about how tired he was from the long drive back and forth to Washington and the digging and hauling all day. He would get right down on the floor and wrestle, the way they used to. Old Dad would be surprised at how strong he'd gotten in the last couple years. His body was begging him to quit, but Jess pushed it on. He had to let that puny chest of his know who was boss. Jess? It was Maybelle yelling from the other side of the scrap heap. Mama says you ought to come in and eat now. Leave the milk until later. Oh, crud. He'd run too long. Now everyone would know he'd been out and start in on him. Yeah, okay. He turned, still running, and headed for the scrap heap. Without breaking his rhythm, he climbed over the fence, scrambled across the scrap heap, thumped Maybelle on the head. Ow! And trotted on to the house. Well, look at the big Olympic star, said Ellie, banging 2 cups onto the table so that the strong black coffee sloshed out. Sweating like a knock-kneed mule. Jess pushed his damp hair out of his face and plunked down on the wooden bench. He dumped 2 spoonfuls of sugar into his cup and slurped to keep the hot coffee from scalding his mouth. Oh, Mama, he stinks! Brenda pinched her nose with her pinky crouched delicately. Make him wash. Get over here to the sink and wash yourself, his mother said without raising her eye from the stove. And step on it. These grits are scorching the bottom of the pot already. Mama, not again, Brenda whined. Lord, he was tired. There wasn't a muscle in his body that didn't ache. You heard what Mama said, Ellie yelled at his back. I can't stand it, Mama, Brenda again. Make him get that smelly self off this bench. Jess put his cheek down on the bare wood of the tabletop. Jesse, his mother was looking now, and put on a shirt. Yes, ma'am. He dragged himself to the sink. The water he flipped on his face and up his arms pricked like ice. His hot skin crawled under the cold drops. Maybelle was standing in the kitchen door watching him. Get me a shirt, Maybelle. She looked as if her mouth was to say no, but instead she said, You should not to beat me in your head, and went off obediently to fetch his t-shirt. Good old Maybelle. Joyce Ann would have been screaming yet from that little tap. 4-year-olds were a pure pain. I got plenty of chores needs doing around here this morning, his mother announced as they were finishing the grits and red gravy. His mother was from Georgia and still cooked like it. Oh, Mama, Ellie and Brendan squawked in concert. These girls could get out of work faster than grasshoppers could slip through your fingers. Mama, you promised me and Brenda we could go to Millsburg for school shopping. You ain't got no money for school shopping. Mama, we're just going to look around. Lord, he wished Brenda would stop whining. So, Christmas! You don't want us to have no fun at all. Any fun, Ellie corrected her primly. Oh, shut up! Ellie ignored her. Miss Timmons is coming by to pick us up. I told Lolly Sunday you said it was okay. I feel dumb calling her and saying you changed your mind. Oh, all right, but I ain't got no money to give you. Any money? Something whispered inside Jess's head. I know, Mama. We'll just take the $5 Daddy promised us. No more than that. What $5? Oh, Mama, you remember. Ellie's voice was sweeter than a melted Mars bar. Daddy said last week we girls were going to have something for school. Oh, take it, his mother said angrily, reaching for her cracked vinyl purse on the shelf above the stove. She counted out 5 wrinkled bills. Mama, Brenda was starting again. Can't we have just one more so it'll be 3 each? No. Mama, you can't buy nothing for $2.50. Just one little pack of notebook papers gone up to. No. Ellie got up noisily and began to clear the table. Your turn to wash Brenda, she said loudly. Ah, Ellie. Ellie jabbed her with a spoon. Jessie saw that look. Brenda shut up her wine halfway out of her rose luster lipsticked mouth. She wasn't as smart as Ellie, but even she knew not to push Mama too far, which left Jess to do the work as usual. Mama never sent the babies out to help, although if he worked it right, he could usually get Maybelle to do something. He put his head down on the table. The running had done him in this morning. Through his top ear came the sound of the Timone's old Buick. Wants oil, his dad would say, and the happy buzz of voices outside the screen door as Ellie and Brenda squashed in among the 7 Timones. All right, Jessie, get your lazy self off the bench. Miss Bessie's bag is probably dragging around ground by now, and you still got beans to pick. Lazy. He was the lazy one. He gave his poor dead weight of a head 1 minute more on the tabletop. Jessie! Okay, Mom, I'm going. It was Maybelle who came to him in the bean patch that people were moving into the old Perkins place down on the next farm. Jess wiped his hair out of his eyes and squinted. Sure enough, a U-Haul was parked right by the door, one of those big jointed ones. These people had a lot of junk, but they wouldn't last. The Perkins place was one of those ratty old country houses you moved into because you had no decent place to go and moved out as quickly as you could. He thought later how peculiar it was that here was probably the biggest thing in his life, and he had shrugged it off nothing. The flies were buzzing around his sweating face and shoulders. He dropped the beans into the bucket and swatted with both hands. Give me my shirt, Maybelle. The flies were more important than any U-Haul. Maybelle jogged to the end of the row and picked up his t-shirt from where it had been discarded earlier. She walked back holding it with 2 fingers, way out in front of her. Oh, it stinks, she said, just as Brenda would have. Shut up, he said, and grabbed the shirt away from her. All right, 4th grade, that is the end of chapter 1. So your next task is to answer our questions on the slideshow. Question 1, what was Jessie's goal upon entering 5th grade? Question 2, Jessie hopes Maybelle will tell her dad about Jessie's accomplishments. What is it Jessie wants him to know about, and why does he want Maybelle to tell him? And the last question for today, describe Jesse's relationship with his father. You can go ahead and type your answers to the questions right into this Google slide. Then we would like you to scroll down to the next slide, and we have inserted your vocabulary. So your first word today is peculiar. Please remember to find the definition. Please write a sentence. Don't forget to check your capitalization and punctuation, and then add a picture for the word peculiar. We will see you tomorrow for chapter 2 of Bridge to Terabithia.